Chapter 1. The Static Room. Diddy woke to silence. Not the peaceful kind, not the stillness of morning or the hush of snowfall, but a heavy, synthetic silence, like something had pressed pause on the world. The room was white. Not painted, not tiled, just white, as if someone had erased all texture and left nothing but a blank void. No windows. No doors. No seams where the walls met the floor. And yet, somehow, he was sure it was a room. He could feel corners, edges, subtle geometry pressing in on him, like a box pretending not to be a box. In the corner sat an old television. Cathode ray tube. Chunky plastic casing. The screen flickered with faint static, humming like 1,000 tiny flies caught between glass and time. Diddy didn't remember falling asleep. Didn't remember waking up. Didn't even remember his name. Not at first. Then the TV whispered, "Diddy." The sound wasn't loud, but it cut through the stillness like a blade. He turned. The screen flashed, then settled on a grainy home video. A child's birthday party. Streamers. Cake. A blurry figure laughing, the camera pointed too low to see their face. But something twisted in his chest. Recognition. Nostalgia twisted with nausea. The camera panned up. There, a boy. 8, maybe 9. Wearing a paper crown. Smiling wide, tooth missing in the front. Diddy stared. That was him. He knew it, felt it in his spine. But he couldn't remember that day. Couldn't recall the taste of the frosting or the name of the person holding the camera. The faces around the boy were distorted, warped, smudged like melting wax. And then the boy looked directly at the screen. Right into Diddy's eyes. And spoke. "Don't trust the mirrors." The tape cut. Just static again. The hum grew louder. The room started to breathe, in and out, the walls flexing with invisible lungs. Diddy stumbled backward, reaching for balance that wasn't there. When he blinked, the floor had changed. What had once been smooth and empty was now scribbled with symbols, red chalk, smeared fingerprints, overlapping loops and spirals. At the center of it all, a thread. Thin. Red. Leading into one of the walls. But there were no doors. He stepped forward anyway, toward the wall. The thread dipped into it, vanishing like a needle through skin. And without warning, the wall opened. Not like a door. More like, it peeled back, flesh-like, revealing a narrow hallway on the other side. Dark. Flickering. Lined with televisions, all playing silent footage, some of him, some of strangers, some of things that couldn't be real. He didn't look back. He couldn't. He took the red thread in his hand and stepped through. The wall stitched itself closed behind him. And the static stopped. Chapter 2. Red Thread. The hallway was colder. Not in temperature, but in something deeper. Like it had been hollowed out long ago and never forgiven. The walls pulsed faintly, lined with old television sets, stacked haphazardly, screen to screen, floor to ceiling, humming in uneven tones. Each TV displayed a loop. A flickering moment. Some showed people Diddy couldn't name, eating, crying, holding hands, but their eyes had been replaced with static. Some screens showed nothing but fields of color that shifted every few seconds. Others showed him. Not just young Diddy. Grown versions too. In some loops, he looked successful, suit, tie, smiling at someone. In others, he was screaming in silence, thrashing in an empty room, pulling at something that wouldn't come loose from his chest. He moved carefully, one hand on the red thread that snaked along the floor like a lifeline. It pulsed faintly, like it was breathing too. It led forward, but not straight. It weaved, looped, coiled, making him double back more than once. Time didn't behave in the hallway. He passed one TV that showed a man in a hospital bed. Diddy didn't recognize him, at least not right away, until the man blinked and winked. Then flatlined. And on the monitor next to it, a grave. With Diddy's name. "No," he whispered. "I'm not dead." The static laughed. It wasn't loud. Just a crackle, like dry leaves underfoot. But it was enough. He moved faster now, trying not to look. Trying not to see the version of himself holding hands with someone in a red dress, and then turning to push them into the sea. The version of himself curled up in a corner whispering, "I'm sorry" on loop. The version of himself putting on a mask made of porcelain and nails. The red thread tugged harder, as if it had grown impatient. Then, a mirror. Just one. Standing tall in the middle of the hallway like it had always been there, though he hadn't seen it a second ago. It had no frame. No dust. Just pure reflection. But what he saw wasn't him. It was, in shape and size, but the face was sharper. Eyes darker. A small, patient smile curling at the edges. The mirror. Diddy raised a hand and waved slowly, even though Diddy hadn't moved. He backed up. But his reflection didn't. It stepped forward. One step closer to the other side of the glass. And then it spoke, voice low and syrup slow. "You remember what they did. You just haven't admitted it." The red thread wrapped tighter around his wrist, like a warning. The lights behind him dimmed. The static grew louder again. The hallway began to flicker. And the reflection whispered, "When you're ready, I'll be waiting at the tower." Then the mirror cracked, not shattered, just a single, deep fissure splitting down the middle. Like the beginning of something terrible. And just like that, it was gone. The TVs all blinked off. And the red thread lit up again, pulsing like a heartbeat, pointing left. He followed. Because what else was there to do? Chapter 3. The Reflection That Lied. The hallway bled away into something else. Not gradually, suddenly, like waking from a dream into another dream you didn't choose. One blink and the walls were no longer screens. No more static. No more thread. Just mirrors. Tall ones. Short ones. Cracked, warped, fogged with breath that hadn't come from him. They stood like trees in a forest, growing from the black floor, scattered with no pattern. Every angle reflected him back a little differently. In some, his face was younger. In others, older. One showed him with hollow sockets. Another showed him smiling too wide. He spun slowly in place. Every mirror responded, except one. That one didn't move. He stared. His own face, frozen. Not mimicking. Still. It tilted its head in the opposite direction, like a puppet delayed on its strings. Then it stepped forward, not into his world, but deeper into the mirror. Its eyes locked on his. Then it spoke. "You let them make you soft." Diddy's heart pounded. He took a step back, but the air behind him thickened like syrup. "You begged for love," the reflection sneered. "You trusted them." Memories stirred, blurred faces, late-night phone calls, the sound of someone laughing behind a closed door. He didn't want to remember. "You know what they did." The mirror. Diddy raised his hand, the same hand Diddy had burned once in a fire long ago. A memory surfaced, a candle, a dare, someone laughing as his skin sizzled. That same hand, now on the glass. Fingers twitching. "And you know what you're going to do about it." "No," Diddy whispered. "I came here to find peace." The reflection's mouth curled into something horrible. "No, Diddy. You came here to finish the ending you were too weak to write." Then, suddenly, it reached through the glass. The mirror rippled like water. The hand grabbed his wrist, cold as regret. His skin pulsed with static where their fingers met. Visions flashed. A door slammed in his face. His name, crossed out in ink. A voice saying, "You were never part of the plan." He yanked free, stumbled backward, and the mirror screamed without sound. It shattered. Not into shards, but into dust. And where it had stood, now only a narrow doorway remained, glowing a dull violet, like dusk remembered wrong. Carved above it, in flickering neon letters. Velvet Forest. A smell drifted in. Lavender, rain-soaked earth, something like fire, and something like blood. Diddy stepped through. He didn't know if he was chasing the truth or running from it. Maybe both. But he was getting closer. Chapter 4, Velvet Forest. The doorway dissolved behind him the moment he crossed the threshold. The forest did not welcome him. It simply was. The ground was velvet, not dirt, not grass, just rich, wine-colored fabric that gave slightly underfoot. The trees loomed tall and unnatural, their trunks impossibly smooth and jet black, like wet obsidian. Leaves above shimmered in shades of deep violet and bruised blue. They didn't rustle. They just pulsed. And the sky. It was wrong. No sun. No moon. Just a dull, undulating glow, like candlelight filtered through smoke and memory. Diddy walked slowly, each step muffled by the velvet earth. He could feel something watching him, not with eyes, but with memory. Somewhere in the distance, a woman began to hum. The melody was simple. Familiar. The kind of tune that plays at the edge of sleep, or at the edge of trauma. Diddy's chest tightened. He couldn't remember the words, but he knew the tune. It was lullaby sweet, but warped. Slower than it should have been, like it had been dragged through time and grief. He followed the sound. As he moved deeper into the woods, the trees began to show faces in their bark. Not sculpted, grown. Mouths agape. Some smiling. Some crying. One silently mouthing his name over and over again. He didn't stop. Then, at a clearing, he saw her. She stood barefoot in the velvet, facing away from him. Long silver hair drifted down her back like silk underwater. She wore a dress made of smoke, shifting and reforming with every breeze that didn't exist. Diddy's breath caught. He knew her. Didn't he? She began to turn, slowly, deliberately, like a ballerina made of memory and ash. And her face. It flickered. Not physically, emotionally. One moment, she looked like someone he had loved. The next, someone who had left him. Then a stranger. Then a sister. Then, her face settled. And he still couldn't name her. But she smiled. Not warm. Not cruel. Just knowing. "You left me," she said. Her voice was both echo and whisper, like it had been said 1,000 times before. "I don't remember," Diddy said. The wind picked up. A sudden gust tore leaves from the trees, but instead of falling, they floated upward like reverse rain, revealing faint symbols drawn on the underside of each. Spirals. Eyes. Keys. Names. One leaf brushed against Diddy's cheek and whispered, "You were the one who lit the match." "No," he whispered. "That wasn't me." The woman walked toward him, slow, graceful. "Maybe not now. But it will be." She reached out and touched his forehead with a single fingertip. Instantly, the velvet beneath him turned to ash. The forest vanished. And he stood once again in the hallway. Alone. The red thread had returned, now tangled around his ankles, like it had been waiting. And far down the hall, a door opened with a creak. Inside, a field of broken furniture and dandelions growing from the mouths of statues. Chapter 5. Dandelion Mouth. The statues didn't move, but they felt alive. Diddy stepped carefully between them. Dozens, maybe hundreds, frozen in twisted expressions of joy, agony, laughter, grief. Each one had a dandelion growing from its mouth, yellow petals glowing faintly, as if lit from within. He didn't touch them. He didn't have to. Each face pulled at him. Like he had known them once. Like he had been them. Shattered chairs, scorched pillows, and warped toys were scattered around the statues, half buried in dark soil. It wasn't a room. It wasn't quite a field. It was more like a memory that forgot where it belonged and decided to rot somewhere instead. A voice, soft, scratchy, drifted in from somewhere just ahead. You step on it, and you remember. That's how it works. Diddy turned. The voice came from a figure kneeling in the dirt, hunched over a small box. Their back was to him, shoulders rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. From their mouth, too, grew a dandelion, blooming outward like a thought that refused to die. They reached into the box and pulled something out, a red sneaker, melted at the toe. Then they held it up to the sky and whispered, "You promised you'd never leave." Diddy felt it before he understood it. The weight. The guilt. He looked down. Beneath his feet, a single photograph, curling at the edges. A child. Smiling. Missing a front tooth. Holding a paper crown in one hand, and a small red box in the other. That box. He stepped on the photo. And memory exploded. Flash. Fire. A room, his room, swallowing itself in orange. Flash. Screaming. Not his voice. Hers. Flash. A hand grabbing his. Another hand letting go. He stumbled backward, breath catching in his throat. The statues seemed to turn toward him now, not physically, but emotionally, like they knew. Like they had seen. The kneeling figure rose slowly, turning around. Diddy's heart stopped. It was the boy from the tape. The party. The smile. Him. But younger. Before. The dandelion in his mouth swayed gently as he spoke around it, words muffled and distant. I waited so long. Diddy shook his head. You're not real. This isn't. You left me there. The wind picked up. The petals blew away. The boy dissolved into ash. The statues crumbled. And the field went dark. All that remained was the box, half buried now. Diddy bent down. His hands shook. He opened it. Inside, a melted toy car, a broken key, and a photo burned around the edges. 2 kids. Him, and her. The name written on the back. June. The thread reappeared, not red this time, but black, and it slithered away like a snake, leading toward a staircase spiraling into a sky full of sharp, glowing needles. Diddy followed. Because now he remembered what they took from him. And he was starting to remember why. Chapter 6. The Needle Sky. The staircase rose like a question no one wanted answered. Each step was rough, uneven, carved from stone that bled faintly when touched, soft red glimmers where Diddy's fingers grazed the railing. The black thread guided him upward, winding around the rail like a vein searching for a pulse. Above him stretched a sky made of needles. Hundreds. Thousands. Suspended. Unmoving. Glinting like stars, if stars wanted to pierce you. Every now and then, one would tremble slightly, just enough to catch the light. Just enough to remind you they could fall. They didn't, though. Not yet. Each step Diddy took felt heavier than the last, not from exhaustion, but from memory. Every footfall echoed like a heartbeat from another life. Halfway up, a sign jutted out from the side of the stairs, crooked and hand-painted in uneven strokes. Only one of you makes it back. He kept climbing. The air thinned, shimmering with static and dust. Somewhere far below, he thought he could still hear the faint whisper of the lullaby, twisted, slowed down, nearly reversed. Then, at the top, a door. Heavy. Wooden. Carved with dozens of tiny, interwoven faces, all with eyes shut, all frowning. The black thread ended here, coiled tightly around the handle like it was holding the door closed on purpose. A plaque above it, glowing dimly. Forgive. O.R. Become. He stood there for a long time. The sky above him buzzed softly, and for a moment, Diddy felt something like clarity, not peace, but truth. That the door wasn't really a door. It was a decision. It was him. To forgive the ones who ruined him. Or become something they could never ruin again. His hands hovered over the handle. Then a voice spoke, not behind him, not around him. Inside him. If you forgive them, you stay broken. If you don't. A pause. You don't come back. Diddy's jaw clenched. He thought of June. He thought of fire. He thought of the mirror that lied, and the voice that didn't. And then he did something no one expected. He laughed. Just once. Dry. Hollow. Then he turned the handle, not left. Not right. But both. The door didn't creak open. It shattered. Like paper soaked in gasoline. On the other side, a new world waited. One where the rain moved in reverse. Where time didn't flow, it pulsed. And in the distance, he saw himself, younger, walking straight toward the fire again. It wasn't a memory. It was an invitation. Chapter 7. Reversed Rain. The sky had flipped. Rain fell upward, fat drops rising slowly, like spirits being pulled back to where they came from. They passed Diddy's skin with a cool hiss, leaving streaks of warmth instead of wet. The ground didn't ripple. It refused to be touched. Everything here moved in reverse. Leaves reattached to branches. Ash lifted into the air, becoming fire again. Footsteps retreated into silence. And there, ahead, was himself. But smaller. 8 years old. Red paper crown tilted on his head. Same one from the tape. Same missing tooth. Same quiet in his eyes. The boy walked forward, unaware of Diddy watching from a distance. He was heading straight toward it. The house. The fire. The moment everything broke. Diddy stepped forward instinctively. Wait, he called out. The boy didn't hear. Couldn't. Time here wasn't a river. It was a wound. He ran, boots hitting the ground like thunder, scattering petals and dust. The boy kept walking, shoulders hunched, clutching something small to his chest, the red box. Stop! Diddy screamed. And the world paused. The rain froze in place midair. Leaves hung still like breath caught in a throat. The boy stopped walking. Then turned. And looked directly at Diddy. His face was blank. Then curious. Then afraid. Who are you? He asked softly. Diddy's voice cracked. I'm you. The boy shook his head. No, you're not. You look sad. Diddy dropped to one knee. He looked into his own eyes, younger, unruined. He wanted to scream, to cry, to warn. But instead, he whispered, "Run." The boy blinked. Then nodded, not out of fear, but understanding. He turned, dropped the box, and sprinted away into the blur of reverse time. Leaves fell upward around him. The house vanished. The fire unlit itself. And suddenly, Diddy was alone again. Holding the box. Still warm. Inside, a Polaroid. Him and June. Before the fall. Before the world cracked in half. A message written in shaky pencil along the white border. It wasn't your fault. A sound behind him, like a mirror breaking underwater. Diddy turned and saw her, the woman in glass, still trapped, still waiting, and behind her, the Tower of Teeth, the place where this ends. Chapter 8. The Woman in Glass. The tower loomed behind her, but Diddy couldn't look away from the glass. She stood perfectly still, not a statue, not an illusion. A real person, trapped behind a mirror that shimmered with shifting light. Like it was made of frozen smoke and memory. She didn't knock, or plead, or move. She watched him. Her eyes were the same ones he'd seen in the forest. And in the tape. And in the photograph, before the edges burned away. June. He stepped closer. The glass vibrated faintly as he approached, like it recognized him. So did she. Her mouth moved slowly, soundless at first, like she was mouthing a word she hadn't spoken in years. "You're late." He reached out, hand against the barrier. Cold. Smooth. It pushed back, gently, like skin over bone. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They took it from me." June tilted her head, like she was trying to figure out if that was true. Or if he just wished it was. "You left," she said. "I didn't mean to." "You always say that." Diddy blinked. "We've had this conversation." June nodded. 10 times, she said. 100. 1,000. The glass darkened for a moment, like dusk passing between them. Then returned to clear. She leaned forward, palms against her side of the mirror. "You come here every time. You always forget. You always remember. You always ask for forgiveness. And I always say the same thing." Diddy swallowed hard. "Then say it." June's eyes softened, not forgiving, not angry, just tired. "It wasn't your fault." He stepped back. Felt the words like glass beneath skin. Familiar, sharp, half-true. "But it was, wasn't it?" he said quietly. "I lit the match." "No," she said. "You just didn't blow it out." Silence. Then the mirror began to crack. Tiny veins, spidering out from where her hand touched the surface. She didn't flinch. Neither did he. "You can let go now," she said. "What if I don't want to? Then the tower will show you what happens next." The cracks spread wider. And with a sound like a sigh being unzipped, the mirror melted. June was gone. Only her shadow remained, burning faintly into the velvet floor. Behind it, a path of teeth, hundreds, thousands, white and glistening, spiraling up into a sky with no ceiling. The tower waited. And now, Diddy was ready to climb it. Because he knew what was at the top. Himself. Chapter 9. The Tower of Teeth. The path crunched underfoot. Every step Diddy took echoed with the brittle crack of enamel, a sound that didn't fade but multiplied, repeating itself behind him like a growing chorus of past choices. He didn't look down anymore. He knew what the tower was made of. Teeth. Human. Worn. Baby teeth. Wisdom teeth. Rotten ones. Clean ones. All fused together to form a spiraling staircase that coiled upward into a ceilingless void. The tower didn't narrow. It tightened. The higher he climbed, the more the air closed in around him, thick and humming with memory. Whispers brushed his ears. Some gentle. Some cruel. "You shouldn't have left her. You didn't deserve to stay. You were just a child. You knew." He gritted his teeth, his own, and kept moving. At one point, he passed a mirror embedded in the wall. His reflection flickered, then changed. Not to his younger self. Not to the masked version. But to her. June. She was smiling. But her eyes were full of sorrow. Or forgiveness. Or both. He looked away. Near the top of the tower, the wind picked up. There was no sky, but it still howled, carrying with it the scent of smoke, lavender, and something metallic, memory in its rawest form. Then, the summit. A single platform. A single chair. And in the chair, himself. Older. Sharper. Colder. The version from the mirror. The smirking one. The one who remembered everything, and regretted nothing. He didn't look surprised to see Diddy. He just leaned back and said, "Well, you made it." Diddy stared at him. "What are you?" The other Diddy tilted his head. "The version of you that stopped pretending it didn't matter." Silence. Then, "You begged for peace," he continued. "But what you really wanted was permission." Diddy clenched his fists. "I didn't ask for this." The other Diddy stood slowly. No longer a reflection. No longer a voice in his head. Just a man, broken, refined, unrepentant. "Then stop acting like you were only a victim." They circled one another. No weapons. No fight. Just memory. Flashes behind his eyes. June screaming his name. A flame catching faster than it should have. A door that could have opened sooner, if he'd tried harder. "You let me grow in the dark," the other said. "And now you want to kill me." "No," Diddy whispered. "I want to be me again." The other Diddy smiled. "Then sit." There was only one chair. Diddy stepped forward. He Saturday. And the other version stepped into him. Merged. Folded. Whole. Pain followed. Not physical. Something deeper, like bone learning how to remember again. Then, quiet. The wind stopped. The tower began to crumble. Not violently. Peacefully. Like it had served its purpose. And as it fell away, all that remained was Diddy. Standing. Breathing. Awake. Chapter 10. Diddy's Revenge. The tower dissolved beneath his feet. But Diddy didn't fall. He floated, not up, not down, just away, into a space with no gravity, no direction, no sound. Just color, slowly shifting, deep blue, bruised purple, a red that looked like forgiveness. Around him, memories pulsed like stars. Not painful now. Not sharp. Just there. He saw the birthday party again, the paper crown, the cake, June's shy smile. He saw the fire, too, but this time, slower. He saw how close he'd come to saving her. How much further he could have gone. But he didn't flinch. Because now he knew. He didn't come here to change the past. He came here to take it back. One memory at a time. Below, or maybe above, the world reassembled. Trees grew in reverse. Rain began to fall the right way again. The forest stitched itself whole. The hallway of mirrors straightened into a single path. The velvet grew roots. And Diddy? He walked through it all. Not angry. Not numb. Just walking. People passed him in dreams, faces he'd forgotten, moments he'd buried. Some waved. Some whispered. Some just watched. And then, he saw her. June. Not in glass. Not in fire. Just there. Sitting cross-legged on the grass, drawing circles in the dirt. She looked up and smiled. "Hey." Diddy knelt beside her. Looked at the circles. They didn't mean anything. Or maybe they meant everything. "I'm sorry," he said. She nodded. "I know. Does it get easier?" She shrugged. "Not really." They sat together a long while. Then she faded, like the end of a song. Not tragic. Not sad. Just finished. Diddy stood again. He turned toward the horizon, toward a world that no longer shimmered with lies, but with memory. Real memory. This was revenge. Not fire. Not violence. Clarity. Truth. Wholeness. And as the sky turned gold, and the final thread unspooled from his wrist, he took one last breath in that strange, beautiful place, and walked forward, into whatever came next.